How are you?
Greetings, everybody. I have 5:59. We will get started right at 6 o'clock. If you'd like to have a seat, we'll get this meeting underway shortly. Chair Boschert, I have 6 o'clock if you'd like to call the meeting to order.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to reconvene the meeting from last night. Can we get a roll call, please?
Chair Boschert.
Here.
Vice Chair McConnell.
Here.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Present.
Commissioner Dunn.
Here.
Commissioner Calling.
Excused?
Commissioner Tomacek.
Present.
Commissioner Mayo.
Here.
Commissioner Zhang.
Excused?
Commissioner Torres.
Here.
Roll call complete.
Okay, we have a quorum and the second alternate will be voting tonight. So let's jump right into the voicemails that wanted to comment on this project.
Curtis, if you could go ahead and cue the voicemails for us. It's approximately 1 hour's worth of voicemails. And they're going to be played continuously with maybe about a 10-second break in between, but they're all going to go one right after another.
Ryan McCoy, 8170 Julian Street, Westminster, Colorado, 80031. And this message is for the City of Westminster Planning Commission, specifically for today's meeting, November 9th. I grew up in an unincorporated Adams County and now reside in the Gregory Hill area. The purpose of this call is to signal my support for ORIAD's development of the Uplands. I understand the concerns of several residents, but I also know change is always met with resistance. ORIAD has done their due diligence and, in my opinion, has made a strong effort in building relationships within the community and addressing concerns. Not to mention, they have modified their plan a number of times, creating more spaces and parks per the community's request. The project not only brings affordable housing to Westminster, the project will be an economic driver for the city for many years to come. Furthermore, after reviewing the details of the project, it is clear the Uplands will be a development that connects multiple communities and provides trails connecting us to parks and other open space, very similar to what you see in the northern part of Westminster. I do want to acknowledge and thank the Planning Commission for volunteering its time and serving our city. And again, thank you. My name is Ryan McCoy.
Yes, this is Shirley Rogel, 8862 Kent Street, Westminster, Colorado, 80031. I am very definitely against this annexation because it will mean more crime, more congestion in the area, and more anxiety for us all long-time residents. Please let us live in peace. I thank you.
Good evening. My name is Don Fittis. I live at 9933 Grove Place in Westminster. 35 years ago, my wife and I moved to Westminster because of its proximity to Denver and Boulder. We found a great neighborhood that offered appealing architecture, cul-de-sacs that limited traffic, extensive green belts with walking trails and other amenities. There is also an elementary school within walking distance and an adjacent city park with sports fields and a playground area. It seemed to be an ideal place to raise a family, and it has been just that. There's no denying that the land on which this great neighborhood was built was once part of a larger farm. So to say that I am anti-developer would be hypocritical, and I try very hard not to be that type of person. Westminster is made up of many such great neighborhoods that would share a similar history. We all know that there are good developments and less than satisfactory developments. I am confident that the Planning Commission knows the difference. When the citizens of Westminster are surveyed, open space, parks, views, and the trail system are always at the top of the list as what they love most. These assets did not happen by accident. People like you in and outside of city government make this a reality. Tonight, once again, Ori Development will make its case with the help of a professional marketing firm that their vision of what so many of us call the farm is noble and best for the city of Westminster. Buzzwords such as sustainable, inclusive, view quarters, missing middle will be incorporated to convince you that this is a worthy project. What they won't focus on is ROI, return on investment. The more units they build, the more units they sell, the more money they make. Do I fault them for that? Heck no. That's what they are in business for, and that's who they are. Do I expect the Planning Commission to represent the best interests of the city of Westminster? Heck yes. As we reach build out within the city, we have an obligation to be the best we can be. The farm is one of the most iconic pieces of property on the Front Range. The highest standards, rather than the lowest common denominator, need to be applied, which is why you must reject the current plan as presented. Thank you for your urgent attention to this matter. Thank you and good evening.
Hi, my name is Mary Thunberg, T as in Tom, U-N-E-B-E-R-G. And the address in Westminster is 11363 Grove Street, Westminster, Colorado 80331. And I'm calling because there has been no vote to totally change the complexion, the whole nature of the Shaw Heights area between 84th and 88th Avenue, essentially, will totally make a project for those who do not care for citizen representation because we have had no vote of the people to totally destroy many of the values that we have in this portion of the area we call Westminster, but abuts unincorporated Adams County. The point that I want to make is that this is made by the agents of the United Nations Agenda for the 21st Century, which now becomes Sustainability 2030, on up. Okay, so this is an assault on the people who have to actually fund this, which are the taxpayers and the people who these contractors who got these jobs and makes the profit at the expense of the people who have lived there, some of whose heritage goes back 100 years. Since 1959, I have lived in this area. It is outrageous that this council thinks that they've got the right and the duty to destroy what's been built in so long a time. The proper laws haven't even been honored by you, so that are related to the services that need to be administered there, and the severe, ugly nature of this architecture is shameful. This is not the architectural style that we have chosen as individuals to purchase or to build. So at every turn of the effects of this, it is shown to be that there is no respect for the citizens, and the cost in basically quality of life is on your shoulders because you want to cram people into these small square footage units with very little transportation, which is all United Nations agenda for the 21st century. I doubt very much whether or not I'm going to be valued by you at all, because you value an agenda of the people who you actually represent, but are hidden from most all the public. I have attended one meeting that was so appalling that had somebody from San Francisco whose job it was to plan this whole thing. So it's not or plan many of the details. Oh, this was from the downtown of the Westminster that spent really $40 million and then $5 million to administer the property at the old Westminster Mall for something we didn't vote on. Again, this is an egregious, outrageous overstep of your authority. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Carl Marita. I live at 8541 Circle Drive in Westminster, Colorado. I am calling in regard to the proposed Uplands project. I have been a Westminster resident for over 20 years and have raised 3 kids here. One of the reasons that I moved here is because of the views and open space of the Westminster farm. So I implore you to vote no on this plan. Our way of life is now under threat. The current proposal has no imagination and is an obvious cash grab. Is also well under the 12 acres per 1,000 residents.
Sorry about the interruption. For the benefit of those at home, we've had a request from one of the commissioners to not play a voicemail if someone spoke last night. And unfortunately, the technology in making a virtual and an in-person meeting come together, the voicemails have to all be looped in together. There is not any way for us to single out a voicemail, to skip it. We can't even start it over. It's one long file. No, it's one long file. It's Curtis, is there a way that you can start this voicemail we're on over? If possible, please restart this voicemail we were just listening to. If not, go ahead and just start replaying, please.
Apologize, didn't want to make
It's required by the city. The objections I have many objections, but the ones that I'll talk about in the short time are to follow. First, drainage. Let's talk about that. We've seen the reports. We've even had reports made by nonprofit groups that show there are unresolved issues with the current plan. In fact, the developer has decided to stand pat and has refused to make any changes based on the current concerns and the new data. Also, traffic. That's another area that adding 5,000 people to the area, which is the equivalent of a First State Center fully packed, and only adding minor improvements to Lowell Boulevard and the surrounding roads is really just going to lead to more traffic and congestion. It's already a problem there. It's only going to be a nightmare adding that many people to that small space. Again, threatening the way of life of all the residents that currently live there. Views. This is an obvious one. The views on the parcels are stunning and world-class. The current plan calls for building 65-foot buildings along Federal, permanently blocking these world-class views from residents and visitors. Now, people come from all around to take pictures and park on the side, so these visitors will be robbed of that view as well. Selling views off for the to the highest bidder is a bad thing for Westminster. Now, based on all of this information, these facts, this Westie resident implores you to take a step back from the brink and vote no on this plan. Thank you very much.
Hello. This message is specifically for the meeting on the 9th about the Uplands development. I'm a 31-year-old who just married her husband, and we bought our first home in Shaw Heights. And these new developments will definitely prevent a lot of open space, which is part of why we moved to Westminster. Our streets are already congested. It's very hard getting out of the neighborhood. There are people that fly through our streets already, and sometimes we're sitting at lights and traffic for several minutes just to get out of our neighborhood. Adding these new planned projects without open space and proper parking and widened roads is going to completely change the whole feel of the neighborhood and prevent basically us from enjoying, some of the scenery that the small amount of scenery that we do have in Shaw Heights. So I really hope that City Council and the City Planning Department does not allow these upland developments to happen. And we really need some green spaces. I have kids, and I can't have, anywhere to walk them in Shaw Heights. That's not fair for, a Shaw Heights Westminster resident. So please consider this.
I'm calling to oppose the development of the Westminster Farm. I just called a moment ago and was cut off. My name is Valerie Guanella Irian, 392 County Road 266, Silt, Colorado. My family and my roots are in the Westminster, Broomfield, Boulder area. My great-grandparents, my great-uncle all lived in the area. My sister, brother still live there. farm and open space is so important to the greater Denver area, to Westminster in particular. It would be an absolute tragedy if this land was not preserved. Please, please, please take care of this land. Please preserve it. I mean, the development in the Denver area is completely out of control. And if you're thinking that this is going to help with housing, it's not. It's just not. Just don't even go there, please. I'm begging you. The farm needs to be preserved. It's so important to wildlife, to the mental health of the residents that live there, to have some open space, some breathing room. I'm begging the City Council to deny the development and preserve the Westminster Farm. Thank you very much.
James Travis, 3685 West 94th Avenue, Westminster, Colorado 80031. I have been a resident of Westminster for nearly 25 years. Recently, during the candidates forum, several individuals stressed the importance of listening to the people. Many of our citizens' concerns, especially for over 10,000 people petitioning against development in this area called Uplands, many of their concerns seem to be overlooked or flat out ignored. Amongst many, the following issues would be insurmountable if development was to proceed. Traffic. It is horrible even now. Water and drainage. Higher rates do not result in more of the resource. We have been and we are currently in a drought. Resources, including schools, would be hard to meet. Crime. This would be a burden on fire and police. A reduction or outright completely elimination of wildlife habitat. Another issue, adverse effect on climate change. Public land dedication. The minimums are not being met in the proposals. Especially for these reasons, please do not give a green light of approval to a developer's vision which does not align with the will of the people. Keep this land beautiful, keep it pristine. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lisa Peck, and my address is 9749 Otis Drive, Westminster, and I am calling about the proposed upland development that's going to take away the farm that is, I'm sure you're well aware of. I am against it. It needs to be kept empty. We've already got sky-high water prices, and they're just going to continue if we cram more people in. Thank you.
My name is Ellen Buckley. My address is 8060 King Street, and I urge you, Chair and Commission members, to reject this proposal. You should decline to recommend approval for all of this. The 2040 Comprehensive Plan has yet to be enacted, and I think it's important that that get enacted before anything happens further with this parcel. The 2013 comp plan that this is under I don't believe the public was consulted about that. I think if any of us that live around that area had been told you all were trying to turn this into a high-density zoning, we would have complained then. We would have said no. This is surrounded by single-family homes, which I notice is not really included on page 10 and 11 of your packet, especially of Parcel A. They just neglect to say single-family homes north of there or west of there. It just says, oh, west is Flynn Elementary School. That's not enough. So when the 2013 comp plan was designed, we didn't understand the water crisis. We're in a water crisis in the West. And to say we can conserve our way out of it or that high density is actually good is not acceptable. We have far less water than we think. We cannot keep growing. It is not practical. It is not realistic. At some point, we have to say enough is enough. Also, there's already a huge drainage issue here. If any of you have driven on Lowell after a big rainstorm, to concretize that entire hillside and take away all the permeability, especially with high density, which has no yards whatsoever, this is not acceptable. You are harming the people downstream of that hillside. I urge you to vote to decline to recommend approval, at least until the 2040 comp plan is enacted by City Council. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Ronald Booth. I live at 8060 King Street here in Westminster. I want to thank the council for the opportunity to consider my comments and those of others. With regard to the open space that is referred to as the Uplands development or project, I would like to encourage the city to put its plans to acquire more open space to the west of Stanley Lake on hold, at least temporarily, and instead use the resources that might have been used to acquire that property instead to acquire the property that is currently designated as the Uplands project. The sort of development the proponents of the Uplands project is not in any way in alignment with the surrounding community, and creation of such a project not only creates potential problems with traffic flow and drainage issues, where serious drainage issues already exist, but as a city, the additional strain on our municipal water supply is becoming increasingly strained, as is the case for so much of the state. I understand the resources that were being considered to acquire the space west of Stanley Lake may not be adequate or a down payment if the city were to make a commitment to raise revenues through bonding or temporary tax increases to complete the transaction. In this way, we can avoid increasing traffic in an area already congested, maintain the integrity of the feel of the area that our residents value so highly, and avoid putting additional strains on our municipal water supplies while creating another open space park for our residents to share for generations to come. Thank you for your consideration.
Hello, my name is Kyle Vu. I'm the president of the Hmong American Association of Colorado. We're officed at 9546 Pelham Drive, North Glen, Colorado, 80260. Our mission value is to promote, unite, strengthen the Hmong community in the state of Colorado through cultural, social, and educational activities. We were approached by Uplands project developer, and they were engaging in our Hmong community and our members. And we reviewed their project, and I think this is a great opportunity for the Hmong people living in the Westminster area, where the Uplands project is. The development, I see potential in a lot of the water savings that is built into this program, as well as the workforce housing and a lot of the parks that they're going to be building in these upland development areas. So I believe that this is a good thing for the community as a whole. We are still working with Uplands to determine a lot of the details. So we are still a neutral party for this, for the Uplands development project. But this is a promising project for the community. So I'd just like to thank you for taking your time to listen to this message. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, good morning. My name is Lance Nading, and I grew up at 8325 Catherine Way, attended Random High School. My brother grew up there, my parents owned, and my mother grew up on Auburn Lane, not far from Pillar of Fire. We're very vested in the community. We still support the community. We're active in civic opportunities, art shows, a whole plethora of things each year. And I just think Westminster deserves all of the economic benefit that it can possibly get to compete with cities like Aurora, Littleton, Arvada. And so I 100% am in support of the Uplands project as discussed when I also spoke on November 9th. You know, in the end, I think the development will really be received well, even by those who potentially currently or have opposed it. I think it's thoughtful. I think the way that it connects everything together and seems to have finishes of the homes that are representative of quality in a community at a competitive price point, I think is just outstanding. So I'm in total support of the project. I believe that if it fails, it will be tragic. It will be if what they're trying to do now doesn't go through. I just think that ultimately it has to be. It has to happen, and it has to happen as soon as possible. As you know, we are losing every year. We lose economic benefit to surrounding communities who are actively engaged in development. There's a huge mega one coming down, you know, south of E470 now that's going to draw like 250,000 people over the course of the next 10 years. I mean, these are the kind of things that we compete against. So I understand there's an intricate and detailed trail system that connects everything. That sounds awesome. I really want to be available for any kind of in-person testimony or questions. And my name is Lance D. Nading, and I attended Random High School, 8325 Catherine Way, and I currently live at 1315 Cherryville Road. Thank you very much. And I just realized that I didn't state my name at the beginning of this, so hopefully that won't mean that it's not heard. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
My name is Pat Nading Ammon, NADING-AMMAN. My address is 15291 Quint Street, Thornton, Colorado, 80602. I spoke at the first hearing they had at the City Council sometime, I think it was obviously before COVID, but I'm speaking again on behalf of the property that's in question as to whether it's going to be developed. I was a resident in Westminster, Colorado from 1957 until I graduated from the old Westie High School. I'm talking the one at 73rd and Lowell, the one that all of my classmates hold near and dear to our heart. And so in that regard also, I'm very involved with the art district there. And I believe that the art district will never be developed the way it is in Littleton, Arvada, and North Denver if we don't do something to bring people to the area, as well as upgrading that downtown area into the art district that it's supposed to be. So from that district to the light rail needs to be improved so that we can have a city that we're proud of in the old Westminster area, which will draw families up by the Pillar of Fire so that we're vibrant and contributing and spending money, and a tax base will be increased if that is done. So I am totally in favor of this project, and this is coming from a longtime Westminster resident. Thank you.
Brandon Coates, 9105 Lowell Court, Westminster.
Don't build on the farm.
Don't build on the farm.
There's not enough water.
There's not enough water.
It's not a sustainable plan.
And it's not as sustainable.
Catherine Voss, 8540 Crescent Drive, Westminster, Colorado, 831. And I am opposed to the Save the Farm. I want to save the farm. As a resident for over 25 years, I have noticed the crime increasing, soaring to a point where police officers have to sit on 88th and Lowell every night. We hear explosions and gunshots, and there's homeless people climbing in and out of your driveway into your back areas. We never had this kind of crime until you started putting the apartments up on 88th and Lowell. And now you want to do that, and I did the math, 129 units at $1,700 a month. They're making almost $22,000 a month on just one building that you want to put in, not to mention the fact that there is no water in Westminster right now. We would have to get it from a private source. And have you thought about what you're going to do as far as police officers?
Michelle Trujillo, 4371 Wagner Drive, Westminster, Colorado, 80031, and I want this statement as a part of the public record. I am against the Uplands development of the areas between Federal and Lowell, 88th and 82nd here in Westminster. I'm a lifetime resident, and I'm a business owner of 11 years here. This generation is facing a legacy heritage decision, a decision that cannot be reversed and will impact all future generations. I urge you to not have your name amongst those that say, we will just build it all out now. There will be no more land, open space, or remnants of the open plains and plateaus of Colorado. We are already at max traffic, max water usage in this area. We do not want or need thousands of more people and homes on this land. You cannot use quote unquote affordable housing shortage as an excuse to high density build out here. Building is happening everywhere across this metro area. So make a stand. Have courage to be the voice that all current and future generations need you to be. A voice that stands against 100% build out in Westminster, Colorado. A voice that says no to high density build out. A voice that speaks for the city's overall quality of life. A voice that protects the beauty of this land. Take a stand and do not be amongst those who only see dollar signs. See me. See my kids. See the future generations calling out for open space, for less traffic, for cleaner air and water, calling out for some peace amongst all the craziness that development brings. Leave a legacy that stands out from all the rest. Westminster is special. Everywhere else is big box building. But this area deserves better and deserves much more than just another high-density development. No to Uplands.
My name is Jorge Merida, and I live at 1099 Osage Street. I am calling regarding the sale of the land that is scheduled for sale at at that beautiful place of Westminster Farm, the farm. And I am against it. And I think that the city of Westminster, like everybody else that is not doing it, should become aware of the fact that profit shouldn't be the motive for development. And in a time when we are fighting for climate change, to create a building in a place that is open space, that breathes fresh air for the children and the families in the area, is totally irresponsible. Money will not take you to heaven. And I don't mean heaven. I mean, it won't give you happiness. Yet at the same time, by doing what you're planning to do, you're taking heaven and happiness away from the people in the area. You need to reconsider and be more humane and more responsible in this era of climate change. I am opposed for you to sell that land, leave it open as it is, or create at least a park. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Hello, my name is Sean. I live on the corner of West 134th Avenue and North Pecos. I'm calling tonight to express my support for this project for the following reasons. I am a young professional in Westminster, and the housing market here in Westminster is pricing many young professionals here, and pricing for a traditional San Francisco home in Westminster. Is roughly around $500K, which seems unfair to newly grads with high school loans, a high student loan. Sorry. I believe this project can help the playing field by providing more attainable housing with more options and more opportunities for young professionals and teachers and our police officers. Another important thing to note is that a huge majority of the proposed residential on Parcel A are maximum 3 stories. These heights are very similar to the surrounding in the current neighborhoods, which is unlikely to block the views of the mountain views. On that note, I support this application tonight. Thank you. Bye-bye.
My name is Eric Wyckoff, 8960 Ithaca, Westminster, Colorado. I am opposed to this development. First, Uplands wants to create a metro tax district and make the people pay for this development. On December 13th, 2004, at City Council meeting, Agenda Item 8C, the City Attorney, Marty McCullough, Finance Director, Mary Parrott, and Community Developer Director, John Carpenter, stated that the city is opposed to the creation of mill levies, tax districts, etc., as staff believes it is not in the best interest of the city or its taxpayers. From heating our homes, rising gas prices, increases on food, and definitely water bills, we can't afford any more taxes in Westminster. And why should the city or the people trust Uplands? Because in 2012, 2013, and 2014, then O-Reed Province, LLC, was delinquent, and in 2017 were non-compliant. This information is on the Colorado Business Entity results. Uplands also doesn't want to abide by City Code 11-6-8, public land dedication of 12 acres per 1,000 people. It would rather pay cash in lieu to the city and once again screw the taxpayers, the people, south of 92nd out of park space. Also, a traffic study was done between 84th and 88th in Lowell, and over 7,100 cars were counted in just one day. Just think of all the traffic this development would bring. Westminster's water report says our city is already over-allocated by 10% in Stanley Lake, and Uplands will only make this worse. The farm doesn't take any water. I'm asking you to vote no on this development. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Zeke Williams. I live at 1890 West 134th Avenue here in Westminster, Colorado. The zip code's 80234. I'm calling tonight to express my support for the Uplands project. I'm a young professional in the city of Westminster, and I currently work with the Spanish and Japanese-speaking members of the community. And I was recently approached by the Uplands Community Outreach Team, and I learned a lot about this project. I'm happy to see that there's such an inclusive process as well as, good principles for smart development. I myself would like to build an equitable life and potentially create a family here in Westminster. I believe that this development project would be able to provide the opportunity for that by, supplying a mix of housing opportunities, jobs, and just, increase the quality of living around here. Additionally, just, the parks, trails, and open spaces are really thoughtful. I know that there are many parks already, but there are some neighborhoods that don't have any at all, and some open spaces that are just rugged, barren, not really in use. So it's nice to see that those spaces will be used. Comparing to the current plan, I don't know. I feel like having more greenery and like nature inclusive development would be great. Yeah, that's really all that I have to say about that. And with that, just support this application tonight. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bukhar Guragai. I live at 3054 West 107th Place, Westminster, Colorado. I'm calling tonight to express my support for the Uplands project. My mom and I are part of the Nepali community and think this project is great development. Currently, I'm a young professional cultivating my skills in high-end dining. I work at a high-end restaurant near the Alamo Draft House, where all the new development is happening. This area and restaurant is booming because of smart growth and planning. However, I do believe that the Upland project is better because it would be able to provide more opportunity, increased mix of housing, jobs, and plan incorporates well-thought-out parks, trails, and open spaces. When it comes down to it, I think this development will provide people like me opportunities to build equity futures. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Carol Danielian. I live at 7772 Zenobia Court. I am calling about the farm. I have watched the people work so hard to stop this absolute destruction of our city. And I pray that this does be stopped and that we do something that truly is good for our community at the farm, not something that is good for a bunch of developers and way, way too many people to be added in this area. The growth of this city is out of control. We are having horrible water rates, and as all we hear about is shortages of water. Our streets are so crowded you can barely drive, and as all Westminster does is continue to grow, grow, grow. We need to stop it. And the development at the farm needs to be stopped and the whole thing rethought out. Thank you. Goodbye.
Hello, my name is Jerry Coyne. I live at 8942 Seton Street, Westminster, Colorado, 80031. Please, 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 no Uplands development. Please, no high-density housing. This massive development would mean 2,350 housing units. To convert the property from the farm to high-density housing and limited retail and very limited open space is unthinkable. The surrounding roads, namely 88th and 84th Avenues and Federal Boulevard and Lowell Boulevard, cannot possibly accommodate the approximately 5,000 cars that would need access from housing. To keep cramming more and more people into open space is just wrong. The city of Westminster has a very, very limited open space remaining, and once it's gone, it is gone forever. Don't let this happen. Please find a wonderful use for the farm. Perhaps a wonderful park with recreational facilities would be most welcome and valuable, or just leave it to open space for everyone to enjoy. Please, no Uplands development. It will ruin the existing neighborhoods.
Hello, my name is Lorraine Prado Mays. I'm at 7460 West 93rd Place, Westminster, 821. I've been living here in Westminster for 25 years, and before that, another about 20 years in unincorporated Adams County, and I'm very familiar with the project on 84th and Federal. I always wondered what was going to be done with this property, and I really want to support the Uplands project that's going to be discussed tonight. I think that it'll be a huge asset to our city and the trail system and the connectivity to the parks and the views that previously were not accessible. And so I'm very much looking forward to that. And I hope that the city of Westminster will make it part of them in a new community and support it wholeheartedly. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Paloma Merida, and I live at 8541 Circle Drive. I'm 20 years old. Westminster has been my home and my safe place for all my life. Now, the Uplands development jeopardizes that. We're in a crucial period of time where we need to make changes in our lifestyle. Our previous patterns of completely altering natural environments and draining natural resources has caught up to us. The world is taking steps towards sustainability and protecting nature, including the animals in it. Those improvements we're making will increase our quality of life. Destroying one of our largest and last open spaces would lead to a dark future for the city of Westminster. We do not have the resources to do this. So who does it benefit? Because it's not the people of Westminster. Will Westminster be defined by its beauty or the memory of it? Will Westminster be innovative and protect our community and what it holds so dear? Will Westminster represent the ideas and values of its residents? Approving the Uplands development would disrupt the neighborhood and have negative consequences which would affect us for decades. It's our duty to protect these vulnerable areas, which is why we need to save the farm. We're colorful Colorado for a reason. Can we remain wonderful Westminster? Thank you.
Crystal L. Wyckoff, 8960 Ithaca Way, Westminster, Colorado, 80031. Hi, City of Westminster, a new mayor. I hope that you are all doing well. I am a concerned citizen of Westminster who is also disabled and crafts a lot in her craft room to keep my mind off of my pain and all of the crazy political stuff that has been going on around our city that we live in. I moved up north here because the south areas was getting too big for my family at the time in 2006. So we moved from Lakewood, Colorado to Broomfield, Colorado, where I lived most of my time until I got married the second time around, and then settled in Westminster because it was or thought to be quiet and quaint town at the time. Now it is growing day by day, and it is getting louder too. I live with my hubby and 2 dogs and daughter off of 88th and Ithaca Way, real close to the Pillar of Fire farm. We love the views of the mountains. If you grant the building of the 2,300 homes and townhomes on this beautiful piece of land, then we who all live along the farm will lose those serene views. I don't want to see 2,300 homes built on this land. I would rather see a park for all of us to enjoy that lives near the farm. A park is a place that has a swing set, teeter-totter, slides, jungle gyms, uneven bars, and the list goes on. Not that ball thing that Uplands was talking about. None of us knows what that is. Never heard of that sport, and I am 50. Laugh out loud. Yeah, go ahead, laugh at me. That's okay. Traffic is crazy already, and there was a study done on Lowell between 88th and 84th Avenue to count how many cars actually went up and down Lowell in a day, and that was during the peak hours too, and there was over 7,200 cars just in rush hour alone. If you all vote yes and have those homes built, then you are going to triple the amount of traffic. I mean, think about it. Crazy, right? My hubby and I were talking the other day about how crazy the way some of these people are driving these days, especially through residential neighborhoods like ours. They don't care about the speed limit signs at all. Someday, one of these neighbors' kids of ours is going to be playing on our side streets like they always do play, because there's no park nearby, and some knucklehead is going to come by and not pay attention to what they're doing or pay attention to where they're going, and they're going to hit one of our neighbors' kids, and I'm going to come unglued and be really upset with you all because you voted yes for the building of these 2,300 homes, because they're going to use our side streets to plow through. So I pray that all of you vote no. Help us save the farm. Let us have a real park with a playground for the kids, picnic tables, a basketball court too. So that way there's a safe place for our kids to go to, not a school for them to play at. Maybe even a safe dog park to go to so we can take our dogs to play. And then you did what? You read my letter at the city council meeting yesterday on Monday, November 8th, 2021? It was supposed to be done today, Tuesday, at the rezoning meeting. You people drive me, stress me out, and cause more pain, and I can't afford to be in more pain. So thank you so much. So I will be at home, sitting in my craft room, crafting away, and watching you on my Roku TV, and I had better hear my voice tonight. Well, I work on cards for veterans, so I better hear it loud and clear. So, goodbye. Love you all, too. Bye.
My name is Jamela, and I lived on Low, directly across the street from the vacant land. I'm a high school student, and hope you can hear my point of view. This land is not open to us in the neighborhood. There are no trespassing signs anywhere meant to scare us from even walking there. I would be so happy if instead there were parks, trails, places for us to enjoy the views. Low is unsafe to live on and walk across. I'm excited to hear that it will be improved with this project. Please improve the Uplands plan before tonight to make this neighborhood better.
My name is Bhuvan Chalise. I live in 3054107 80031 Westminster, Colorado My son and I are part of the Nepali community and think this project is great development. Right now I'm a medical worker and have to commute to Urbana. As I am getting older, I need a place that will allow me to work in Westminster and age in place. I believe this development will invite medical business and revitalize this area and improve many of the issues that the current community has today. I also want to say thank you to the developer for reaching to us and providing information. They were very thoughtful and inclusive to their process. Please support this application. Westminster, please let me know if you have any questions. I call by Jasper. Thank you.
Hello, Westminster Planning Commission. My name is Jason Horniak, and I live at 4989 Decatur Street in Denver. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comment in support of the proposed Uplands community development. As I said, I'm a resident of Northwest Denver, close enough to Westminster that I often drive up to your city to patronize your businesses, just right up Federal Boulevard for me. I'm a board member of Unity Denver, and I am the president of the Chafee Park Neighborhood Association, a Denver registered neighborhood organization. So the population of the Denver metro area is growing and will continue to grow, and our inability to keep up with that growth, not the growth itself, is the cause of many of our problems. Frankly, we need more houses everywhere, and especially infill housing near transit like Uplands, if we want to address the region's housing, climate, and traffic issues. These problems do not follow municipal boundaries, and the benefits of a project like Uplands affect the entire municipal area. The income-restricted units, the workforce housing numbers, the water efficiency, access to transit, walkability, open space of all of this proposed projects, frankly, make me embarrassed that Denver isn't doing projects exactly like this in our remaining infill areas. I have a 10-month-old baby, and I often funnel my advocacy toward things that I think will make his future better. And I truly believe that development projects like this will go a long way toward making the future of this region more livable for him and his generation. Please approve this project, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Hi, my name is John Zhu, and I live at 9144 Lander Street, Westminster, Colorado, 80031. I'm just calling because I want to support the Uplands project. So I'm a part of an organization, and we run a lot of events, and I think it would be really good to have that area as a park to help us run events and run sports tournaments and stuff like that. That's something our organization does a lot. And yeah, I think it will be very beneficial for the area for that project to happen. Thank you. That's all.
Hi, my name is Delisha Beatty. I live at 2005 Moselle Street, Federal Heights, Colorado, 80260. I, for one, stand amongst all of those opposed to ruining the farm on Federal, spanning 84th and 88th. Please keep our land the way it is. We don't need housing there. All we need is the land and the views and the air quality and the water quality, and we don't need more demand on our water, and we don't need more demand on the land there. So I know there's a lot more people that can express my views more clearly, but please, I vote that we keep our farm. Thank you.
Hi, name's Bobby or Robert Tellez. I live on, 1009 112th Avenue, Unit D, here in Westminster, and I'm calling. I want to express my support for the Uplands project. I've been involved with a couple different Uplands community outreach team members and some of the stuff that they're doing. I'm learning a lot about that process, and it sounds really great. mostly around like the inclusivity of the process, around the principles that they're standing on. I think is really smart for this development to happen in Westminster. I think it provides a great opportunity to have a mix of housing, different jobs. It hopefully can increase the quality of life of the residents. So I just want to say this is going to be really great, and I really encourage everyone to move forward with this. And I think it meets the application meets the criteria for diverse housing, well planned out neighborhoods, and open space. That's what I love about Westminster is that mix. But one thing that would be cool down there would be to have a little bit of a commercial district of some kind, whether it's like a brewery or like a local boutique or something that you can do when you're near the parks nearby. Anyways, just want to share my thoughts around that. Hope you all have a really good day. Again, my name is Robert Tellez or Bobby. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lucy Sieber, and I reside at 5408 West 100th Court in Westminster, and I am speaking opposition to the proposed Uplands. In terms of infrastructure and population density, we all know the Uplands project would house approximately 6,000 people. Why not drop a town like Gunnison or Estes Park in our midst? Quite simply, our infrastructure cannot support this population. I would point to an article written by Andrew Spurgeon. Does that name sound familiar? In the March 11, 2019 issue of the American Planning Association Colorado Chapter Journal entitled Reconsidering Growth Management. Mr. Sturgeon states, quote, inclusive growth should accommodate new populations, but should not overwhelm existing. Thus, importance is also placed on a healthy balance. A high rate of growth can challenge infrastructure, whether it is utilities, transportation, schools, or public safety, end quote. Point of fact, both CDOT and the Metropolitan Sewage and Water District have concerns and have not signed off on this proposal. It sounds fairly cut and dry to me. Does anybody not acknowledge that 6,000 residents would not adversely overwhelm the existing neighborhood and the city as a whole? Or read Capital and Development, moving it onto the marketing scheme sent out via email by our READ Capital and Development. It states that the public land dedication will equal 47 acres of parks, view corridors, and pedestrian pathways. Since when is a pedestrian pathway, aka a sidewalk, considered a public open space? Per city code, 12 acres per 1,000 residents is required. The public land dedication should equal 72 acres, not 47. Westminster markets itself as having beautiful open spaces. In reality, that is not true for the entire city. It is well known that South Westminster has a paucity of open space. Simply put, our actions do not comport with our values. Water. Westminster residents are advised that the city will have enough water for additional population if we practice conservation. There is no if out of a mega drought. We have been told that building up, not out, will assist in our conservation efforts. However, I came across an interesting article in the Western Planner Journal of May 8th, 2020 by Andrew Spurgeon. The article is entitled Integrating Water and Use Planning in Colorado. Mr. Spurgeon states that, quote, the city, meaning Westminster, has seen new patterns of development in contrast to the traditional style single-family development. Although compact development results in less outdoor usage, indoor usage may increase when calculated on a per-acre basis. Really? In closing, I would just state that Mr. Jeff Handlin of Oriad Capital and Development has said something in the past like, this is what this land was meant to be. I don't know who his guru is on the matter. I will counter with this maxim: whisper words of wisdom, let it be.
Laura Noakes Lang, 8150 LaPlace Court, Westminster, Colorado, 80031. Congratulations to our newly elected mayor and councilors and the re-elected councilors. I'm sorry I cannot be there in person. I have a hideous infection in my eyes, and I don't think anyone wants to see me as much as I don't want to be seen. My concern regarding the development taking place in the city is that lovely suburban Westminster is becoming like Queens, New York, where I grew up. Queens is a congested, dirty hodgepodge of every kind of residential property, commercial property, and manufacturing facilities. Every person I knew as I was growing up in Queens left as soon as they could. There is not one family member or friend remaining in Queens unless they are buried in one of the enormous cemeteries there. Assuming the city will miraculously find more water to sustain all of its current residents at more reasonable rates and adding thousands more residents to boot, the owners of the properties at Uplands ought to be able to develop them. I think the water availability issue should be resolved first, and then the appropriate type of development can follow. We are in a drought, and the climate change proponents are just sure things are going to get a lot worse in the near future. I understand that a comprehensive plan for development of Parcel B was approved February 11, 2020. At that time, I remember discussion of overflow parking being available along Bradburn Drive and some of the buildings needing to encroach on the greenbelt around the development. That doesn't sound like a good plan to me. Now, I am thinking that the developer is seeking PUD zoning for Parcel B. The last time we had PUD zoning in the area of Parcel B, the developers at that time talked to the residents about building a retirement community of single-story buildings with a convenience store at the center. The community went along with that idea. We ended up getting the apartment complex at 84th and Lowell. I am just sure that the residents along the north side of 84th are more than a little disappointed at the scenes out their front windows as a result. They have cars and trucks and dilapidated vehicles of every sort parked bumper to bumper along the south side of 84th and even in front of their homes. There is a constant battle against the trash that people just casually drop everywhere. There is loud music, groups of men standing around chatting, and just generally not a nice, clean living atmosphere. Is that what we will get more of with this proposed PUD? I don't want it in my neighborhood. I believe property owners ought to have the use of their land, but they ought to have consideration for the surrounding properties, striving to make the place better than they found it. I like open spaces more than I like crowded conditions, and I think many people agree with me. I suggest that these developers need to go back to the drawing boards and come up with a plan not based on greed, but on responsible, considerate development. Of course, whoever owns this land should be able to use it. And maybe there should be a law about developers having to live in their developments to inspire them to make what they do really special for everyone. Thank you for listening.
Hello, my name is Holly Walter. My address is 8826 Brain Street, Westminster, Colorado, 80031. And the reason I'm calling this morning is I would wish that you guys would just leave the farm alone. If you guys haven't noticed, we're running out of water with your high-density planning in the Westminster area. You guys have built high-density housing at Wishbone as well as in the Westminster Promenade area. Your parking is a joke down in that area in the Westminster downtown area. And frankly, I'm afraid you're going to do the same thing to the farm. The farm has been an open space. Once it's gone, we can't get it back. And also the resources, you guys are not really thinking very much or planning accordingly for long-term sustainability in Westminster. Being a resident here of 40 years, I would hope that you guys would take into account the people that actually live here and have grown up here's opinion, and I hope that you guys just leave the farm alone. I believe your ideas are not good. I don't think that they would benefit the area, and overall, I think that your planning is a joke all around. If you guys want to have more business, why don't you go ahead and fill the empty storefronts that are already available instead of continuing to build more storefronts that are going to remain vacant in Westminster? Thanks for listening to my opinion. Once again, my name is Holly Walter, and I live on Frayne Street, and I've been here for 40 years. So have a great day, and once again, save the farm.
This is Jacob Girding from 9033 Utica Street. I was just calling to tell you I don't want the Uplands developed into housing. I want them to remain an open space / park. And the reason why that is the roads are already maxed out to capacity as is. We don't need more traffic in this area. So, and again, we're in a drought-stricken area, and it will require water that we can't afford to give to more people. So again, I do not want that area developed into housing, nor any apartment building. I just want it to be an open space / park. All right, bye.
Yeah, my name is Steve Girding, 9033 Utica Street, and they want us to comment. I'm hoping this monstrosity, this insanity that's supposed to be built at the farm over there on 84th and Federal, between Federal and Irving Street. And hopefully now that we have a sensible administration and that this thing's going to be scrapped, and flushed down the toilet, because it's an absolute monstrosity to bring that many people and put cheap housing on our property and create a nightmare, a gridlocked nightmare along Federal Avenue, along 84th Avenue, along Lowell Avenue. All the people living right there are just be faced with years of construction. And beside that, you don't have the water. We're in a drought. They need billions of gallons. And we're hoping this thing can be flushed down the toilet. So anyway, that was one of the reasons I voted for McNally, Baker, and DeMott. Thank you.
That concludes the voicemails that were left in advance.
Thank you. Do we have any emails we need to acknowledge?
There was one email received, and that was left at your seats this evening.
Okay. And that is in the record.
That is in the record.
Thank you. All right. Having completed the voicemails, I am going to close the public meeting.
Chair Boschert, we do have one in-person speaker.
We do.
We do have an in-person speaker, and I had 2 requests for virtual this evening. They have not joined the meeting, but I will go ahead if you'd like and call their names in case they're in the audience.
Okay.
The first speaker was Abigail Martin. I don't see that you've logged in, Abigail, to the meeting. Are you by chance here in person? Okay. And the next speaker, Virginia McAllister. I don't see that you've logged into the meeting, but are you here by chance in person? Okay. The in-person speaker that is here tonight with us is Carrie Nina. Nina, come on up. Just be sure to state your name and address for the record, please, and lean into the microphone. You will have 5 minutes, and I'll start the timer when you're ready.
My name is Carrie Nina. I grew up on Hmong Street on 92nd Hmong. I just think that it should be too much of traffic. I just don't like traffic right now because it's too much people moving here and causing so much accidents and stuff like that. That's right.
Okay.
Make it short.
Thank you.
Procedural question.
Sure.
Is it appropriate to close the public hearing before rebuttal, or we would request that the rebuttal be in public hearing?
It's usually done, a rebuttal is usually done after the public hearing, but staff will need to weigh in on that? John, do you have an opinion?
I don't have an answer for that. I'll refer that to Ms. Decker.
Mr. Chair, we do close it after public testimony. That doesn't mean that the public hearing is closed. We are just closing public testimony.
Okay, so the hearing will be open, but the testimony from the public will be ended. Okay, in that case, I am going to close the public testimony and allow rebuttal from the applicant and from staff.
Thanks for the clarification. We just wanted one more clarification to make sure that the rebuttal is part of the record. Thank you.
In that case, does staff wish to go first, or do we want the applicant to go first?
We would defer that to the applicant.
Okay. You're up.
Rita, did you tell me earlier you wanted staff to go first or us? It's up. We're flexible the way the applicant doesn't.
Yeah, for clarification, we would prefer that the applicant do a rebuttal and then staff has additional comments. I think we have about 5 staff members that would like to get up and address some comments made during the public hearing. So you go first.
Yeah, applicant is next then. You are up.
Good evening. Todd Johnson, Terraforma Solutions. I'm the technical consultant on the project, so all the coordination of all the experts that we have within our side and the third parties that have prepared the studies that you have seen in your packets tonight and that have also been approved by the city staff are what we have coordinated closely. We've spent thousands of hours, as you would probably imagine, on preparing these reports. And I just want to go through a couple of the comments that have been made and provide some buttress to the things that the city staff has also told you and provide some additional context as well to a couple of comments that have been made. So I'll just kind of step through a couple of the major items that we have, and I'll touch on drainage first. So there's a couple comments that were provided in a letter to you from a consultant that had been that had looked at these things for some of the people that are adjacent to our project. 4 points in there that they objected to. I can provide more context to with that letter. The 4 points, the first one was a basin delineation that there was some question on. The overall master reports that are put together, this is something that Mile High Flood District, and this is another point that has been made, has not reviewed this or not approved what we have done. We don't believe that's the case. Again, we've worked very closely with the city staff and Mile High Flood District on these issues. There are other processes, as you would understand, that we have to continue to go forward with after the approvals of the PDP and these preliminary reports that we've put together. So there are additional things that Mile High Flood District will be reviewing, will be approving for that. One of the points, though, I'll just get back to those for a second. The 4 points that were there is a delineation of basins. This was what we feel in the early reports that were put together. There were some contradictions from very early reports to reports that were put together probably 5 or 10 years ago. We actually did some ground truthing of those basins. So we went out, we actually surveyed the property in detail and defined that basin. So what you see in the report and also the objection that you're seeing here as well is not really a basin transfer. It was actually a basin definition of further detail that we put together. So we defined exactly where that was. We quantified that so that there were no differences in those reports that you may have seen before. And also for our purposes, really define those flows. And when you think about A, and this particularly impacts A, when you think about A, everything really drains down to Shaw Boulevard and Lowell. And I think another main point that we need to make here is Uplands. You're hearing a lot of deficiencies within all of the systems that are out there. Well, Uplands is solving those problems that are out there, not only with the deficiencies that are there today, but what this development will bring. So you heard in just one of the comments that we're going to have more impervious areas. That's true. But we are building a facility on our site that will actually cut down the flow. And I'll get to that point because that's one of the other ones that they have in here. So basin delineation or definition is one of them. We feel that we've corrected any inaccuracies that were out there, and we feel confident that that is cleared up. And that point, you also have a correspondence from 4 different agencies agreeing with what we were defining there. You have Adams County, you have Mile High Flood District, you have the state engineer that looks at the water resources and makes sure those are in concurrence. And then again, you also have the state as well, or I'm sorry, the city as well, agreeing with that correspondence and definition that we put together. A second point that they're making in there is the current flooding that occurs down Shaw. We agree with this. That's currently what's happening. There was no control on any of the property that you have in your consideration tonight. This project brings not only the water quality treatment of all the waters that will come off of this property. So we're taking care of all those oils that are mentioned in this letter and treats that water. But it also is detaining and over detaining. We are doing a heavier lift than most projects are responsible for within the city of Westminster. And so I'll spin to also the fourth point there because these two really go together in that the previous reports that were out there classified a 100-year event potentially going down Shaw Boulevard at about 289 CFS. The city requirements are about 183 CFS. We are only releasing 87 CFS out of this facility that we're building at Shaw and Lowell. So we're drastically reducing the flow amount, which also translates then to a less flow that goes down Shaw Boulevard, helping reduce flooding that is occurring within that area. The third point, there is a technicality there that they're talking about on a 10-year event. The existing systems that are down there at Shaw and Circle actually surcharge in a 10-year event. So on technical terms, talking engineering side of it, we're just recognizing that that situation is occurring. We're documenting that situation. And again, we will be improving that situation. Currently, flow goes right across Lowell. We will be controlling that and then releasing it across Lowell in a much safer manner. So I believe, again, from a drainage perspective, we are improving situations substantially with this development. Again, deficiencies don't get solved without this project really occurring. Next, I'll go to transportation. I think the one thing, again, from a technical perspective and myself as a professional engineer is the safety that we are bringing to this project. Again, the roadway connections don't get enhanced without this project. More importantly, the sidewalk connections don't occur without this project. And we're adding mobility with bike lanes as well. We've worked closely with Cedaw. There's some discussion in here as well about us not getting Cedaw's approval. We've worked very closely with them. We've gone through numerous rounds of minor technical corrections. The comments that you see in your packet or that you may have seen in correspondence have all been addressed. And basically, they did not change any of the recommendations. They were just cleaning up, this percentage should be 5% instead of 5.2%. They don't impact the actual road network that we're proposing, the mobility that we've worked with CDOT on federal, and the improvements, again, that we'll be making. So from a transportation perspective, safety, I would say, is number one. And again, the deficiencies that are within this area are being improved by this project. Again, we're not only taking care of the deficiencies that are out there today, we're taking care of our development, and we're also building for the future. These roadways will have additional capacity for the improvements that we're putting in. We're also, I'd say, going above and beyond. We're doing some additional widening on such roadways as 84th and Lowell that are on the Pillar Fire property. Those are off the property that we are doing. So we're enhancing the entire corridor. We're not just going in and piecemealing that you see a lot of times with some development. So we're doing a full road improvement for some of these sections. As far as the water and sewer, what you're going to see and what you've seen in your packet is we're doing some major improvements here. Again, we're not just fixing infrastructure that's around our project just for our project. We are going about a mile or two offsite or providing funds for the city to do other improvements to the sanitary systems downstream that were already deficient. And we're adding the additional capacity to those systems to, again, help those current deficiencies and also help our expansion and also help with safety factors. The lift station that's out there today on Parcel E that you see there in our project actually does not have any safety factors. If there's an overflow event, those safety provisions that we currently designed to are not in the previous designs. So this project, again, is providing safety and also providing those situations where if there was a spill, it's contained. That's a major issue, as we all know, when we get into dealing with any downstream sewage going into drainage ways. And so I think, again, the main point that we would say is we've worked very closely with the staff, the referral agencies. We have the approval from those agencies for those particular reports that we put together as a requirement of this application. And I am here to answer any other technical questions that you might have related to our reports that we have provided to you tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. I just wanted to add a couple things to that. We are in the middle of a design process for the rest of the construction document level improvement documents. And so there were a lot of comments made about Bradburn, LaPlace, existing one-way issues, federal, and the surrounding roadway sections. And so I just wanted to mention that this PDP outlines the general vision for those improvements, and the detailed analysis will be finalized in the next time you see us for the site-specific official development plan process, where it's fully detailed out. It shows exactly how striping and signage and turn lanes and one-ways and all of the technicalities of those things work. The PDP is really preliminary in nature, and so we'll be back with those details that some of the folks last night asked about. And then just the traffic reporting process, as Todd mentioned, on other items, traffic, we defer to the professionals. We don't make this stuff up. It's coordinated with Heath and CDOT and other third-party traffic professionals that do these things and counts and all that. It's best practice. It happens all over the country. And so it's not us saying how wide the road should be. So I just wanted to pass that along. We're moving along quick. We will be brief here. Bonnie's going to come next, and then Marcus.
Could I please get slide number 28 pulled up? Again, Bonnie Najalik, Norris Design, 1101 Bannock Street in Denver. We also wanted to reiterate our goals for creating an inclusive community. We heard a number of comments yesterday related to existing home prices in the surrounding neighborhood compared to price points for housing within Uplands that we'd like to clarify. Per public data pulled today, in 2021, 103 home closings occurred within Shaw Heights. The average transaction price was just over $440,000. Also in 2021, more than 1,100 homes closings occurred within the city of Westminster. The average transaction price for those homes was nearly $510,000. Uplands is committed to creating an inclusive community in two key ways. First, we're providing 300 true affordable homes. We're saying this on the record as a formal commitment. Last night, you heard from St. Charles Company and Maker, who are under agreement to start design efforts on these 300 affordable homes within Uplands once we have this PUD zoning and PDP in place. Second, our commitment to missing middle housing. The existing comprehensive plan and housing study stressed the need for a diversity of housing options within the city. Uplands has a unique opportunity to provide an impactful diversity of housing, the existing mix of housing options within Westminster today. The 2013 comp plan discusses the importance of a balanced housing mix. The mix afforded by this PUP provides a variety of homes for rent, homes for sale, homes with low maintenance living options, homes for seniors, and homes at a variety of price points. This ensures a wide range of incomes, age groups, and lifestyle choices to reinforce the city's identity as a diverse, attractive place in which to live and work. Could you pull up slide 139? Next, we want to address sustainability and creating a healthy community. We 100% agree that Uplands needs to be thoughtfully designed to minimize its impact. Uplands is committed to doing this in a number of ways. First, a commitment of 2,500 trees to reduce surface and ambient temperatures in a place where only a handful of trees exist today. We have a commitment to Energy Star single-family homes and cool roofs on multifamily homes. We're providing much improved access to recreational amenities and bike and pedestrian connections to reduce dependency on cars in support of air quality. And finally, we're building a compact, integrated, walkable community with great access to transit and amenities. Providing much needed homes, shops, and amenities in an accessible infill location that is consistent with your comp plan is the most critical step in reducing impacts to the environment by reducing the wide-reaching impacts of sprawl on communities. And finally, could you pull up slide 20? We also wanted to talk about process and what's on the agenda for your recommendation this evening. The Uplands team has been working directly with the city for more than 4 years on these plans. 2 years ago, we were in front of you requesting land use amendments. Since then, we've had countless meetings, formal reviews, and discussions on all the details found in your packet. The first request is annexation, which simply annexes right-of-way in a small pocket of land, which is primarily set aside for public land dedication into the city. The next two agenda items, the rezoning and the PDP, are related. Rezoning to PUD requires a preliminary development plan. Per code, any request for rezoning to PUD shall be accompanied by a request for approval of a PDP. These processes have to happen together. As discussed yesterday, the PDP simply establishes a framework for future site plans to be evaluated against. This last item is the master ODP. This provides an additional level of detail specific to Hmong communities. It expands on the framework established in the PUD to ensure the future neighborhood complies with the goals and the intent of Hmong. As Todd and Chad just mentioned, it's important to note we are not able to build anything with these approvals. We still have very detailed site-specific ODPs and civil construction documents to go through to discuss all the design details, the infrastructure improvements to make sure we're meeting the vision of the PDP and all city criteria. We're happy to answer any questions on any of the plans, the process, or anything else that we can assist with tonight. And with that, I'll bring up Marcus to address our last two items.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Marcus Pockner. If I could go to slide 79, please. I want to thank you again. I'll transition to the final few issues that we wanted to address. I will focus specifically on the water budget and then discuss the public land dedication analysis. If I may, I just want to point out for folks just to understand that we had backup slides in our presentation. So these have always been part of that. We're not providing new material tonight, new slides. I just want to make that point clear. This slide that you've all seen, I'll come back to in just a minute. First of all, I'd like to actually step back and just acknowledge the emotion and so forth that's been associated with the water rate discussion. We have all witnessed it over the last couple of years. Frankly, we've witnessed it over the last couple of nights. I know that it is a very real emotion. People are struggling to pay their water bills, and some of that emotion has undoubtedly been connected or tied to this project. So respectfully, I want to completely honor that that's happened. We know people are struggling with that, and we understand that situation. The challenge tonight, and I say this again with full respect, is to try to step back and separate those two issues. All of you, I say this with full respect to you as ratepayers, you get notices from the city. You understand the history better than you. You're part of that communication. So if I could just try to separate the supply and the rate discussion and how that works. We passed out a flyer to you, a handout, that was in front of all of you. That's actually called Growth and Water Rate, How Each Development Project Pays Its Way. This was put out in May of this year by the city. And just the first paragraph actually says, In Westminster, each developer project pays its way through tap fees. Tap fees help ensure that current water customers do not pay the cost of providing water to new customers and buildings. Uplands will pay $39 million in water and sewer taps. Current water customers will not pay the cost of providing water to Uplands. So I think that's just an appropriate way that the city has put in place for many months to say that there's a difference between the supply side and the rate issue. Now I want to address Vice Chair McConnell and others that had the question about the supply. Let's talk about that supply issue about the water budget. I think if we could slide here, or just this slide that's been up a number of times before you. As you all understand, this is the art of the decision that was made on the water supply plan. In 2007, there was service commitment for 2,800 plus units at this site. Then in November 13, it transitions to the comprehensive plan. A water budget was made for 3,800 units, period. It was made for 3,800 units, not to Uplands, not to Oriad, not to us. It was made to this site. And then it was adopted as part of the water plan. You see there right below it, incorporated into the water supply plan for 778 acres. Then this shows repeatedly how that has been reaffirmed. Most importantly, reaffirmed before you last night by questions by Sarah directly, that this is allocated, the 770 acre feet are allocated to this site, and there is water budget for this project. Thirdly, if I can transition to page 3 of that same handout that I passed to you, there was a remarkably astute question by Commissioner Carpenter who said, I want to understand the trends of how this is using. Are people actually conserving water? So that just basically shows the red line is how the Westminster population has increased over the last 20 years. The blue line actually shows the 20-year trend of how water usage is actually decreasing. So we were showing that even though population is growing, water usage is actually decreasing. But he said correctly, well, what if that changes? Will we still be able to provide the water for this site? Sarah said a resounding yes. We have absolutely, we the city, I can't speak for the city, Westminster has planned for this site, allocated, or budgeted this money, I'm sorry to say allocated, budgeted this water, set it aside, and is forever attached to this site. The other thing I want to say about this is we respect entirely this graph here, but we must go further. We Uplands must go further. So if you go to slide 30, this is a slide that you saw last night. We have our allocation for 778 acre feet, but this is what we're doing to make sure we don't even use that. First of all, we're building 1,500 less units than is allowed in the comp plan. 1,500 units off the top. Then we are putting all of these technologies in. So we will save $32.6 million gallons of water annually, almost another 100 acre feet. So I just want to pull that together to say that we looked at the supply. We looked at how the city supplies that water, and we have honored it. Finally, on slide 90, you all understand your approval criteria very, very well. The first approval criteria says, do we comply with the comp plan, all policies, and all plans? We meet the water plan, we meet the comp plan, our water has been allocated for the site. So I think that really tries to button up that the supply is there and that we're also not burdening existing ratepayers, and we certainly understand that's a much broader discussion. If I may now transition to the public land dedication. This is an issue that has come up repeatedly from questions from all of you and from speakers. I want to reference and just start, if I may, from the mechanics. If we could go to slide 65, and may I get a drink of water? That was not a built-in pause, I apologize. Slide 65. So, Commissioner, you asked, Vice Chair asked us yesterday, do we comply with 1168B, which is basically the policy of public land dedication. 12 acres of PLD per 1,000 residents is the city code, right? That's generally how it is. And I just want to do mechanics, right? And these are estimates. As you know, 12 per 1,000, that's roughly 64 acres of PLD. We are dedicating 40 acres of PLD and 24 acres of cash in lieu is how we're satisfying. So Uplands will meet the PLD requirement by providing 40 acres of dedicated land and paying between $5 to $8 million in cash in lieu. So that's just the statement. If we could actually go to, just stay on this slide. I want to talk about the evolution of that decision. That's about a 3-year decision. And I'm going to describe it in 2 to 3 minutes, okay? So first of all, why did we make that decision? First, it's a very informed decision. There is actually remarkable precedent for having a combination of cash in lieu and land dedication. I certainly will defer to the city, but the city has done this dozens of times. There are dozens of examples of projects that pay maybe only cash in lieu or some combination of cash in lieu and land dedication. So we are not the precedent. We are not setting a new example. We are following this practice. This is actually the practice in most cities that they find that. And what they're looking at is how do we properly site parks across the whole city? And also the second part, how do we build them? How do we pay to build them? That's the part we're forgetting. It's not just the parkland, it's actually building the park. So the first thing, this was a very informed decision. The next thing, if I can go to slide 35, this is something that I want to focus on, is just that first part. So let's just talk about the parkland. Here you see how we're going through it, the 40 acres. This slide you saw last night as well. This is just focused on the first part of the balance, providing the parkland. Here you see what happens with the Uplands plan. I heard a number of comments tonight, and I want to be sure and address them. Ladies and gentlemen, we are providing remarkable open space for our surrounding neighborhoods. The city staff has been incredible in working with us. They went and walked this site, every parcel, and figured out how to really push the parks to the edges to benefit our neighbors. That's why these are there. This is city staff led, a beautiful design of spreading that benefit, that amenity to the community. So I just want to kind of talk about how that happens. So parklands, just to establish for everyone, there are 60 acres of dedicated parkland in Westminster that have not been built today. 60 acres across the city that have been dedicated that can't be built because there's not budget to build them. So the first thing we have to realize is there's land across the city that's there. We have to figure out how do we do both, dedicate them and build them. This shows you then, let's just look at Uplands. On our site, I just want to give you an example. Then we looked at what are the appropriate scale and size of those parks. Just as an example, you all know Parcel A. If we made all of Parcel A a park, it would not change that graph one bit. The standard for cities, our neighbors have to walk to them in 10 minutes. That's the standard for a city for when they're providing parks, right? If all of A was a park, it doesn't change that graph. That's because they'd all be clustered in one area. So we're not dispersing those parks across there. So that was another thing that we looked at. How do we build other parks across the city and build that land in? So next I'd like to transition to slide 134, please. This then took us to an analysis of TMUND. As the chair mentioned last night, tell us about TMUND, traditional mixed use. We looked at other TMUND projects, other sites, to say, hey, what have they done? What's the appropriate mix? Bradburn, unbelievable flag bearer, right? People talked about it last night. So you see Bradburn, Highland Village, and Uplands. As you see, this is a PLD as a percentage of the total neighborhood area. Bradburn, 10%, Highland Village, 15%, Uplands, 17%. We are providing more PLD as a percentage of the land than the other kind of highlighted TMUND projects. But it's done in a policy consideration of how do we dedicate that land and then how do we also build them. But I want to just point out how deliberate we were in looking at other sites to find this right combination. Next slide, I'll be quick. 131, please. Finally, why this balance is so important, finding that cash in lieu side, is also how does the city, they have a very tight budget. We all know that. The Parks and Rec and Library staff, they have a budget. We all pay into that. We all work hard. But this is Bradburn. 15 years ago, as you see in that bottom left hand, it says Parks Land, PLD, City of Westminster, PLD. That park has not been built for 15 years. It was recently told it'll likely be another 15 to 20 years before that is built. The reason for that is the budget is not there. And that's why we believe it is actually the best public policy to provide cash in lieu to help build these parks. So it's that balance, but these are the factors that led to it. My last slide is slide 135. I just want to say, after all that iteration of kind of us thinking out loud of how we did it, I want to be sure and point out what staff did so incredible in their staff report. They put the code section here that says, if the city determines a land dedication would not serve the public interest, the city may require a blend of the land dedication and a blend of the cash in lieu. Then secondly, in your staff report, the chair asked us last night, do you accept the additional conditions? This is the additional condition. It says city council must determine whether the land dedication alone of 12 per acre per 1,000 persons could not serve the public interest in accordance with section 1168B. If council makes such a determination, then it may approve the applicant's proposed combination of public land dedication and cash in lieu. Folks, we have followed exactly how to go through that process. We have been incredibly thoughtful about how to not only dedicate the land, but to bring parks to our neighbors. As you saw in that image, we are actually solving it for 1,300 people, not our residents, for our neighbors to bring them open space. So I just want to be sure we believe we are in full compliance. I'll end by saying, and maybe Jeff has one last rebuttal, we are asking for no exceptions, no changes to the comp, but we are full compliance with all the plans. This includes this. We are meeting the PLD standards. We're working through this process, and we're anxious to have this discussion with City Council as well. Thank you very much.
Jeff Hanlon, thanks for hanging in there for this process. I feel like it was a week ago. It was last night when I first spoke to you. We spoke then of three numbers. I'd like to revisit those three numbers now. The first one was 778 acre feet of water. You just heard an awful lot about it. There's lots of pages in your packet. But if you have any other questions, we're here and available for you. The reason I like to talk about it is that even after, if this 20-year trend line flattened, as Marcus pointed out, then the city has enough water to service its existing residents and the full 2013 build out. It's really important to understand. In other words, the city is not counting on conservation for build out. The math within the city's water plan includes a specific reservation for this property. That's relatively rare and reserved only for the largest properties. And we knew this back in 2013 and 14 when we first got involved, but you have all the data in front of you and you can ask staff. The second number I asked you to remember was 1,500 units. Those are the units less than the maximum build out in the current comp plan governing the city that we would leave on the table that we're not building. Why is that important? Here's why. Right now, in the 2020 population of this city is 116,000 folks, according to the city. Build out, according to your current comp plan, is 129,000 folks. That's 13,000 folks. We represent, at full build out in the comp plan of 3,800 units, about 2/3, if you take 3,800 units times the population numbers they told you before, we make up about 2/3 of that build out. Okay. What's important to understand in those 1,500 units represent 3,700 people. That's 2.5 times 1,500. That's almost 28, that's like 28, 30% of your build out that we're leaving for a buffer for water, for traffic and everything else. That's why the 1,500 units matter. And lastly, the last number was 2,500 trees. I'm really, really proud of what we did. Went out and sought out the nation's best landscaping professionals. And we designed a plan that used our water to grow shade and native plant pallets instead of water-intensive sod. I'm proud of it. I'm so thankful that you've been able to sit through all this. This is a lot of information for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And with all this talk of water, I think we need to take a short recess so everyone can use the restroom. We'll meet back here at 8:02. Thank you.
No, I'm. No, no.
Okay, everyone, I'd like to call the meeting back to order. Yep. Okay, at this time, I'd like to have the staff rebuttal if they have anything to add.
Go ahead and get
Chair
started.
Bosher, we have several staff that want to provide some comments based on the public testimony. Sarah Borgers is first.
Thank you. Sarah Borgers, Water Resources and Quality Manager in Public Works and Utilities. Happy to get the opportunity to speak with you again 2 nights in a row. There were a few things that I wanted to address both in public comment and address some of the comments that were made by the applicant. The first one is this general sense of water crisis. I heard that term used a couple of times. And I just wanted to make it clear, while the Desert West, including Colorado, is experiencing rather substantial droughts right now, Westminster is actually in a fairly good position. That's largely because of the excellent work that happened really before I was here. The city has done a really good job to buy and purchase senior water shares to develop Stanley Lake and other reservoirs to a quality and amount that it keeps us in a good position. So drought came up a couple of times. We are in a drought right now, a climatic drought. We have not declared any drought restrictions because our water supply is strong and is about average for where we expect to see this time of year. Regarding the water supply plan and drought, I do want to make it clear that drought is considered in the water supply plan. We did a tree ring study that goes back to the late 1500s. There are droughts in that time period that are far worse than the droughts we've seen in the last 100 years. And so we are planning for futures with droughts far worse than we've seen in any of our lifetimes. We have also evaluated for climate change. We largely see that climate change models are within the ranges that we've seen in the paleohydrology, which is the tree ring study that I was talking about. And so we do feel like we are in a strong place for the next 20 years to withstand drought and climate change. This is where I do want to address one thing that the applicant stated, that we don't need conservation for the long-term planning of the city. That is not an accurate statement. We absolutely do need conservation trends to continue. And that's largely because we need to be responsible stewards and be prepared for drought and climate change scenarios. So because those variables are so massive, when we look into our future and with the modeling that we've done, that conservation is really geared towards resiliency. Very little of that is geared towards the actual developments such as this. So I think that's just an important nuance that I want to make sure folks understand. And probably the last thing I want to mention is I've heard a couple of people mention this concept that Stanley Lake is 10% water short, or that if Stanley Lake's 100% full, we're still 10% water short. I don't know where that information is coming from. It is not something that has come from our water supply plan, both the previous plan and the most recent plan. So I just want to make sure that everyone's clear that that is not a statement that was made by City of Westminster staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Nicole Ankeny, Senior Landscape Architect with Parks, Recreation, and Libraries. And to some extent, the applicant went ahead and covered the items I was going to cover. I wanted to remind everyone with public land dedication, it is indeed the 12 acres per 1,000, but if the City Council determines it's in the city's best interest to do a combination of dedicated land, physical land, and cash in lieu, that can be done within the city code and still be compliant. We have seen development projects that are 100% land dedication. We have seen projects that are 100% cash in lieu, and we have seen projects that are a combination. So as long as the city council concurs that that is in the best interest of the city, then that is indeed compliant. When we do look at public land dedication, as projects come into the city, each project is very unique. We're really looking at site context, land use, and also all of the surrounding parks, open space, and trails. So as these projects come in, they're all so unique. Sometimes it's difficult to really compare. Some projects may be immediately adjacent to a large floodplain. Others might be, there's just a lot of different scenarios. There could be wildlife corridors. It's very different. So we want to make sure that we look at our existing parks and open space and trails, but also depending upon where the proposed development is occurring in the city, we will also look at other jurisdictions, especially if they're immediately adjacent. So each project is very unique, and we take each one very seriously and review them all.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commission. Keith Klein, City of Westminster Transportation Engineer. I'm going to touch on 4 items that I heard through public testimony and through the presentations last night and tonight. The first is some of the concerns from the Observatory Heights residents, particularly to not seeing any improvements to Bradburn Drive, and that will be improved. It will be still a single lane in each direction, bike lanes, curb gutter, and sidewalk. So that will be constructed with this development. And we do understand that there's concern for LaPlace Court, and Ms. Van Court brought it up last night, and we will be working with the developer to make sure that we do address the concern for the cut through from Bradburn down to Oakwood. We don't really know exactly what that is. Ms. Van Court did present something to the city as an idea, and that is an encouraging concept. And so we will be working through ideas and ways to sever or to cut down that perceived cut through traffic. So secondly, there was a comment about the Shaw Boulevard diagonal that goes from 84th Avenue to Shaw Boulevard, and giving or not getting something for that right-of-way vacation. So typically when right-of-way is vacated, it goes back to the property owner that dedicated the right-of-way to the city. And the city did not pay for this right-of-way. And so we do not typically ask for compensation to give that back. And with this project, we will be seeing the addition of right-of-way that is granted to the city. Third is about the Cedaw and the Mile High Flood District approvals. At this point, we do not need an approval from either of those entities. We encourage the developer to work with the city and those entities in preparation of the PDP so that when we get to the construction documents, there really isn't a surprise. At the construction document phase, that is when there will be approvals from CDOT for improvements in their right-of-way, as well as approval from the Mile High Flood District. So my fourth is on traffic volumes. We've heard a lot about concern about traffic volumes, and particularly to Lowell Boulevard. The number 7,100 trips in a day has been mentioned several times. Over the history of Lowell Boulevard, we've been counting traffic from 91 and periodically, about every 10 years. So in 1991, Lowell Boulevard, north of 84th Avenue, saw 7,500 vehicles a day. In 2000, that increased to 8,500 vehicles a day. In April of 2005 and April of 2007, we counted it, and it was at 10,400 vehicles a day. We did count in 2017, 8,300 vehicles a day. In 2020, we did count it. That was a pandemic year, and we saw that the numbers went down to 5,000 vehicles. We have seen it start to increase. It's back to 7,100. But all of this is to say that the roadway, as proposed in this development, will be able to safely carry the proposed added volume from this development. What we're looking at with this development is going to be closer to that 10,500 vehicles in a day. And that is real similar to what we currently see down on Lowell Boulevard with the same kind of configuration just north of 72nd or even south of 72nd. We are currently carrying nearly 14,000 vehicles a day on that two-lane roadway. So with that, thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you.
Rita McConnell, Planning Manager. I'm going to address the affordable housing commitment. The applicant has committed to providing a certain number of units on affordable housing. We also did hear significant testimony from those in support of this project that there would be workforce housing. We don't have defined terms for affordable housing or workforce housing within this plan document, the PDP or the master ODP. The city does not have a requirement for it. This is what the applicant is committing to. For the ODPs in the future, we will determine what type of housing, what type of affordable housing, and the location of that housing. That will come much later, and that will come after further discussion with the city's planning division, as well as the economic development team. They are the ones that do manage the city's housing and affordability programs and policies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Patrick Caldwell, Senior Planner, City. And I just wanted to follow up on a question from Commissioner Tomachek last night. He had a question on the parks, and in particular, he asked how the private parks would be available to the public and what is the mechanism, what is the tool that we would use. And we noted that we would have a public access easement to those private parks, and that would be placed on the ODP. And once the ODP is approved, there would be a final plat, and the note would be added to the plat, and that would sort of make it legal. And so to follow up on that, we are suggesting that there be a fifth condition added to the list of conditions, and it would state all future site-specific ODPs for parcels A, B, C, D, and E that include a park shall contain a note that states private parks and any other parks shown on this ODP shall be available for use by the general public. A public access easement for this purpose is shown hereon, and the public access easement shall be recorded on the final plat for this ODP. And we've discussed this with the applicant, and they're comfortable and agree with this condition. And the other thing I want to note is that in your agenda memo, the fifth condition has been replaced with the one that I just read. And you were provided earlier during this meeting with a copy of this condition as number 5 in your list if you choose to make a motion. So, do you have any questions for me? Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're probably the right guy to answer this question. On the on the parks,
Patrick, would you like to approach the podium?
Yep, sorry.
I believe the question's for you.
Yep,
I'm sorry.
As you were sitting down, it just came, you were probably the right guy for this one. On the public parks, are they going to be installed right away, developed right away and maintained? Or are we looking at a potential situation like Bradburn that they've been there for 15 years and it might be another 15 years?
I think that Nicole Ankeny would be better positioned to reply to your question.
At this point in time, we don't have any specific timelines The way that the public land dedication occurs, whether that's the physical land and or the cash in lieu, that happens at final plat. And then park development fees occur at building permit. So if you're dealing with single family residential, you get those fees with each building permit that is applied for. So at this point in time, we don't have enough. They've produced a little bit of information on their proposed phasing, but essentially the Parks, Recreation, and Libraries Department will have to evaluate how that's going before we make a determination. And we will also be likely working through that during the budget process. So once we have enough fees to move forward, of course, we'll be going through our capital improvements process. One of the other things that is going to be really critical to the park development is doing a robust community outreach process so that we're not designing in a vacuum. We really truly want feedback from the existing residents, the new residents, to the extent that we can get that feedback as we enter the design process. So at this point in time, unfortunately, I don't have a time frame in which those would be developed.
Since they're private parks with public access, who's going to maintain them?
If they're private parks with public access, those will be maintained privately, unless there are other agreements made. So the private entities, whether they have an HOA, they will continue to maintain those.
Okay, so the Metro District concept, which people said they weren't interested in that, and the Metro District would kind of help maintain those.
So a Metro District would occur potentially later, and I don't know if someone else in city staff or if the applicant would like to speak about that, because I think there's a couple, there's 3 different potential park types. That is a public park that is owned and maintained by the city. That is a private park with a public access easement that is maintained by an HOA, and then the potential for a Metro District park. Metro District parks, I believe, are required by state statutes to be open to the public, but I would like the applicant to discuss the potential of the Metro
Okay,
Districts.
thank you.
Thanks for the question. I think a couple clarifications. There are really just 2 types of parks proposed in this development. There are the PLD parks, the 40 acres of PLD that the city will take, the city will build, and the city will fund the building of those parks. That is the city's code and policy for public land dedication. We don't have any control over that, sort of unfortunately, because the timing of those parks is unknown and has a long queue, it sounds like. The second type of park is a private park with public access that we talked about. That park in this circumstance will be built by and with the surrounding development. So if we have a filing of, say, 50 homes, the park is in the middle, that 4% park will be built by the developer, funded by the developer, and it will be maintained by the HOA. There's really no contemplation of a Metro District at this meeting. It's a future discussion, and it's likely to finance public infrastructure and not operations. So it's probably, in this case, an HOA that maintains those parks. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it answers the question. And, you know, part of my thought process here is, you know, this is an interesting development, and it's kind of appealing having all of this park space. But if this park space may or may not appear in the lifetime of the residents that we're promising these parks to, are we doing a disservice?
I would just answer, sir, and I know you understand this. If that park or this project is not approved, then there will be no parkland developed at all. So that is, it's still private land today, as you well understand. So I think this, sir, gives us the opportunity to have that parkland. And again, I think as we just heard, there are parks that the private parks are going to go. And I think the city just said, you know, and I'll let them answer that. There is a process they go through, capital improvements, to build those parks. So I think we were just talking about the blend of that. So, sir, we couldn't agree more. We want to see parks there. The city wants to see parks there. Residents want to see parks there. I think we're all going through that process to get those parks there.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a couple more questions regarding the Metro District. Besides the parks maintenance, the private park maintenance, what else is the Metro District intending to pay for? And what's the scope of the Metro District? And I don't know if you have a proposed mill levy and who is actually going to be, who will be included in that mill levy taxing area?
First, I'll just start. Thanks for the question. I'll just start by saying that there is no approval of a Metro District at issue tonight. The city's code and process requires an approved official development plan before a service plan application, which is the governing document to form a metropolitan district, can even be submitted by review for this to the city for review. So that is down the road. The city's policy has nuances about whether or not they're allowed and in which circumstances they are allowed and in which circumstances they're allowed, what that mill levy might be. I think it's a separate process to even determine that. I can tell you that if someday that were to happen and we go through that process, a Metro District in any community, whether it's this one or any of the other dozens of municipalities up and down the Front Range, those taxing districts are only on the property for which they are formed. So the only ratepayers of any mill levy of a Metro District in the future maybe would be paid by future Uplands residents only. We don't impose taxes on existing homeowners or anyone that's businesses or any existing homes or infrastructure that's in place today.
Okay, got it. And thank you. And one other question then, if you get to the ODP process and the city denies the formation of a Metro District, will you still be able to develop and maintain these private parks that and whatever other infrastructure may be thrown into that without a Metro District formation?
Yes, and we'll bring this forth when and if we do discuss a Metro District application, but that affects the affordability of the home. And we believe that Metro Districts are a great way to finance public improvements without raising the upfront cost of a home. But that's a future discussion. So it's either A or B. It's not like we're going to go this far and then have to stop because maybe that doesn't improve. We think there are benefits to it that we'll explain to you during that process. But again, a little early for that conversation.
Nope, no problem. I just wanted to ask the questions and get on the record. Thank you. And then, let's see. There was one other question I had. Oh, yes, water resources. The one other thing, one speaker mentioned the Platte River being over appropriated for water use, basically. And so can you speak to the seniority of Westminster's water rights as opposed to the other users of the over appropriated river, please?
Right, absolutely. That's a great question. So that speaker was correct. The South Platte River is over allocated, but what that means is that there is no new water available for folks that have not already procured water supply. Westminster is not in that case. In that position, all of our water rights are very senior, and so we have water already kind of set aside. It's probably the wrong word, but set aside for our use. So it's a yes and.
All right, got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, I'm good for now. Thanks.
Okay. And I have a question for the applicant. If the city council approves this project, when do you anticipate breaking ground and when do you anticipate full build out?
Does anybody have a crystal ball that's functioning? In all seriousness, we are at the beginning of a very long process and a very long project. This is a multi-phase project, and each approval process is very time consuming, very detailed with staff and the engineering reports that are required. We have to deal with folks like Cedaw that aren't exactly super efficient and fast. And so I think at the very earliest, if the city council approves what's before you tonight, we have another 6 to 12 months of construction document approvals for the first site-specific ODP and construction documents. And that's a big range, I know, but I thought this would be done a long time ago. So it's just a crystal ball question. And so if that were to start and we were to break ground in sometime in 2023, late 22, early 23 at the earliest, I think it's a 15-year project before this is built out. There are multiple, and that's a range too. It could be 12 to 18 years. It's a guess. And it depends on market conditions. We will go through market cycles where demand is higher and lower for different product types, the land use types. We have mixed use, we have office, we have commercial, and that all doesn't happen at once. And so I think it's a long-term project.
Great. I just wanted to get kind of a big picture view of things. So thank you. Commissioner McConnell.
Thank you, Chair Boschert. One more question. This comes from last night. I think he was our first speaker. I cannot remember his last name, but his first name was Eric, and he was with the, let's say, the Uplands Collective. He made mention of a 5-acre farm. Is that part of the PLD, or is that TBD, or?
Eric is here tonight. If you'd like to ask that question of him, if that's appropriate. He's not really the applicant, he's the public, but up to you.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'll answer the question. I think what Eric was intending is that the statement was something like, we would love to be able to do a 5-acre garden park growing operation on the PLD, because those are vast, expansive spaces. And whether that is a temporary use until the parks are fully built out, or that is an interim use, or that is a permanent portion of the ultimate phase through community outreach, when the city and the existing and future community do full design charrettes for these PLD parks. We hope that a community garden is a part of that. And so Eric, I think through the collective has that as a goal, but it's not really our place in the applicant's position or the collective's position to dictate what happens on the PLD. So it's a sensitive subject, and he dictated it as a goal.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Let's ask the lawyer. Can the commissioners speak to some of the folks who testified during the public hearing?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
I hope the rest of the commission will forgive me for being a little flippant with some of my questions. But this goes to either the applicant or the city, whoever can answer them. And it has to do with the existing owner. We heard from the gentleman that does the farming on the land that the owner believes that the farm has become economically infeasible, and therefore they're selling the land. There's been questions about, can we make it a park? Can we do those kinds of things? Has the city investigated purchasing the land, and what obstructions were there to making that purchase?
So Commissioner Tomacek, I'm gonna take a guess that the staff might not have knowledge as to whether or not the city as an organization has pursued purchase. Maybe Nicole might have some information on that, or maybe not. That could be a much higher level knowledge base than we have here in the room.
Yes, I don't have any specific information. I know the city has had conversations with the owner over the last 30 to 40 years. Whether it's been specifically on the parcels before you this evening, I cannot confirm. But at this point in the game, we're in a quasi-judicial process, so the city cannot be reaching out to the landowner to try to secure any kind of an acquisition at this point in time.
Oh, that part I understand. I'm just looking for sort of a historical marker. Why, if the open space was that important, has the city heard from citizens prior to this development, and has that been approached? And
Yeah, I only have anecdotal information. I started working for the city in May of 2015, so I just don't have factual information. So I just don't want to present anything that is incorrect.
okay. And give it, and you may not know this either, but given what you know of pricing of land and so on and so forth, one person made the comment that we should forego purchasing the land west of Stanley Lake and use that money to buy here. Given what you know of what land costs, is that even a potential?
I think the land values are likely quite high and would likely need a very significant grant or bonding effort, but I do not know the actual price. I have not seen an appraised value, nor am I privy to the existing contract with the applicant and the landowner. So I just don't have any specifics. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. And so this question isn't going to be for you, it may be for somebody else. This will be maybe my most flippant question of the evening. Given that the land is already established as agriculture, what would prevent the Pillar of Fire folks from turning it into something like a pig farm?
Commissioner Tomacek, there is existing zoning on the property. So the land uses would have to be compliant with whatever those zoning districts allowed. And I know I'm just going off of memory here of what I remember from the map, but there are different zoning categories on there, just traditional zoning categories.
They wouldn't be changing their existing zone. So-
Exactly. So I'm not aware of a zoning that allows a pig farm. We do have some agricultural uses in the O1 district, and I can look those up for you.
Okay. What would be the most, just based on your general knowledge, what could be the most obnoxious thing that the landowner could do?
If somebody knows which slide the zoning map is on, that might be helpful to answer this question. I unfortunately do not have my zoning map up.
The reason, I understand why you don't have those pieces of information readily available. The reason I'm asking those questions is there's a basic assumption that the land is going to remain open space and a wheat field or a cornfield or whatever it is that the landowner happens to grow. But the landowner themselves can put things on that land that the local community doesn't like. And quite frankly, they don't have to ask. They can do certain things on that land within the zoning regulations and the other air and pollution regulations that are available to them that you may not like. So in certain regards, I'm asking sort of the city, if the community is that interested in remaining, this area remaining as open space, is there some sort of control that would prevent the landowner from doing that?
So just the zoning regulations. And I'm sorry, I have to make a general statement on that because I don't have the zoning map in front of me. I do believe some of the property was zoned O1. And so, for example, the O1 property could be used for crop production, dairy farming, pasture and raising of livestock, but excluding feedlots. So that might address the question about the pig farming. And so there are other uses like nurseries, private golf courses and country clubs, riding stables and academies, and water reservoirs. Of course, any use would have to meet all applicable zoning and other regulations that the city has that would apply to that. Of course, structures and whatnot would have to be building, fire code, et cetera.
Okay. So further development as a farm could occur, block the views, do all the things that this development would do. And they would be well within their rights under their current zone to do that.
Yes, they do have current development rights in accordance with the zoning regulations.
Thank you.
Any other questions? It looks like there are none, so I will entertain a motion on this application. Commissioner Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do the first one first here. I move that we recommend to City Council that the annexation, comprehensive plan designation, and establishment of PUD zoning for the right-of-way annexation properties and the Parcel B annexation property be approved prior to approval of the PDP and Parcel A MODP by City Council, subject to 1, the condition that the City Council finds that the petition for annexation of the Parcel B annexation property substantially complies with statutory requirements at the December 13th, 2021 hearing, and the following additional conditions. The additional conditions shall mean 1, the applicant shall pay for 100% of the costs of all required on-site and off-site water, sanitary sewer, storm sewer, and other public infrastructure without any contribution from the city required to support the construction of parcels A, B, C, D, and E. 2, the applicant shall enter into a public improvements agreement with the city that requires surety sufficient to guarantee the required on-site and off-site improvements identified in condition number 1 for the development of parcels A, B, C, D, and E in accordance with section 11-6-4 Westminster Municipal Code. 3, City Council must determine whether the land dedication alone of 12 acres per 1,000 persons would not serve the public interest in accordance with section 11-6-8 subsection B Westminster Municipal Code. If City Council makes such determination, then it may approve the applicant's proposed combination of public land dedication and a fee in lieu of public land dedication or other combination of land dedication and a fee in lieu acceptable to the city. City Council, Planning Commission recommends the applicant's proposed combination of public land dedication and fee in lieu or other. In fee in lieu, period. 4, the proposed delayed effective date for each entitlement, which is the date the deed is recorded from pillar of fire to Westminster OC or its assign, be approved by City Council as requested by the applicant. If such deed is not recorded on or before 2 years from the date of City Council approval, the approval shall not become effective, and the entitlements for the property shall continue to be those in effect prior to approval. If the City Council ordinance, motion, or resolution approving each entitlement does not contain the requested language, then the application for the entitlement will be deemed withdrawn, and City Council's approval shall not take effect. And 5, all future site-specific ODPs for parcels A, B, C, D, and E that include a park shall contain a note that states, quote, private parks and any other parks shown on this ODP shall be available for use by the general public. A public access easement for this purpose is shown hereon, and the public access easement shall be recorded on the final plat for this ODP, end quote. And
Do we have a second?
Mr. Chair, for the record, since it wasn't very clear, I just want to confirm that for the third condition, that the Planning Commission is recommending the applicant's proposed combination of the public land dedication and the fee in lieu.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Mayo.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion before us. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Carpenter.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. This one, of all of these, this is the easiest one to do. This is annexing right-of-way and protecting a strategic view corridor off of Lowell Boulevard. I think that this is a really great, great annexation. It allows the city to control these important areas, and I will be voting in favor. Thank you.
Okay, and I would also like to state that I had many reservations about this application, and all of them have been answered very clearly and with transparency. I also was worried about the public land dedication, and the applicant has explained very clearly why cash in lieu is sometimes an improvement over total land dedication. And so that leaves me with only one concern, and that is the on-street bike lanes. It's a pretty small concern, but people are being hit by cars all the time. And I think if there's any way that the applicant and the planners could make the bike lanes off-street, near the sidewalks or somewhere on land that is away from the streets, that would improve the use and make people feel much safer and be much safer. So that's the only concern I have about this entire project. Everything else has been answered, and I'm going to support the motion. Thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Mayo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Throughout these 2 nights, I've been taking tons of notes to myself, things that I need to consider, things I need to bring up. And as the night went on, they were pretty much all resolved. You know, in my mind, the park thing, I still, have a little question on, but it is what it is, and we'll see that in future bites of this apple. And the other big one was the water. And I came in with some preconceived misconceptions, and Sarah cleared them all up. And I really appreciate the time you spent to do that. And I'll be supporting the motion.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Chairperson Boschert.
In favor?
Chairperson Boschert is in favor. Vice Chair McConnell.
Yes.
Vice Chair McConnell is in favor. Commissioner Carpenter.
Aye.
Commissioner Carpenter is in favor. Commissioner Dunn.
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn is in favor. Commissioner Tomacek.
Yes.
Commissioner Tomacek is in favor. Commissioner Mayo.
Yes.
Commissioner Mayo is in favor. Commissioner Torres.
Yes.
Commissioner Torres is in favor. Complete.
The motion passes unanimously. Do we have a second motion? Commissioner Mayo.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the City Council that the zoning of parcels A, B, C, D, and E to PUD be approved prior to approval of the PDP and parcel A MODP by City Council, subject to the additional conditions as stated in the first motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Boschert.
In favor?
Chairperson Boschert is in favor. Vice Chair McConnell.
Yes.
Vice Chair McConnell is in favor. Commissioner Carpenter.
Aye.
Commissioner Carpenter is in favor. Commissioner Dunn.
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn is in favor. Commissioner Tomacek.
Yes.
Commissioner Tomacek is in favor. Commissioner Mayo.
Yes.
Commissioner Mayo is in favor. Commissioner Torres.
Yes.
Commissioner Torres in favor. Complete.
And the motion passes unanimously. Do we have a third motion? You guys need to pull your weight down there on that end.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend to City Council that the PDP be approved prior to approval of the Parcel A MODP by City Council, subject to the additional conditions as stated in the first motion.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Commissioner Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the appropriate place for me to insert the rest of my comments. So as a planning commissioner, the point of view I always start from is that a property owner should be able to do what he wants with his own property. This property, owned by the Pillar of Fire, was platted for residential units in the late 1800s. The Pillar of Fire has owned it for over 100 years in various, from Westminster University, and now it's Pillar of Fire. I know there's some ownership transfers, but essentially, this was always contemplated as residential units. So, with the owner wanting residential units, and it's always been contemplated that way, and we have a water budget for it. That's a pretty tall mountain to ignore of evidence there. This is what it is. Now, we've asked the questions about water. I believe what the staff has said. This is the most thorough answers I've ever gotten to the water supply questions, and I really appreciate that. I'm still not convinced where the trend line goes, but over time, but I think but then we start getting into where we go from quasi-judicial to policy. Are our water rates high because somebody in the city is trying to drive down usage to encourage that trend line? That's a possibility. And that's not our job as planning commissioners. That is the job of the city council. So there's that. So I think, if the city ends up in a pickle because we don't have enough land to build out or enough water to build out something else because we made incorrect assumptions, then this council or future city councils will have to make that adjustment, whether it's lessening tap fees or lessening density. I don't know what that will be, but right now, with the best information we have the water for this site. There's been a lot of talk about this being open space, and as a resident of Westminster, I loved going to the top of the Pillar of Fire bell tower and looking down the farm. It's beautiful. I don't disagree there, but the Pillar of Fire needs their endowment. They need something to make sure that they can continue whatever their mission and what's important to them. And this is going to continue that, where farming is no longer a money maker for them. They're going to be able to use this and invest it wherever they can to improve their schools and everything else. I see that as a major selling point there. There will be parkland. That's really important. I think that's there right now. Anyone who goes on there is trespassing unless they go and talk to Reverend Dollerbach. And if you don't, then you're trespassing. That's just kind of how it is. And they'll actually be able to use this part of the land. We're going to be improving the flooding. We're going to be improving the drainage, the water infrastructure that's not part of the water supply, which is a completely separate question. I mean, that's pretty amazing. And really, and I totally get it's been like this forever, from everybody's memory. And I can't say I won't be sad to see it go because it's beautiful. But at the same time, I've seen a lot of projects come here. This is by far one of the most studied, most complete applications from an applicant I've ever seen in my decade on the Planning Commission. the community outreach, just by the different communities that came in that they have reached out to is amazing. I'm, hearing the Hmong community, the Nepali community, all these different communities, I get that. And I get there are a lot of people who are upset that it's going to go. Well, there's a couple things. You could have spent the last 3 years trying to put together something to buy the land out and take care of that. That's one. Or it would be a policy decision by the city if they decided they wanted to buy the land out from under them and not allow any development on there. But again, that's a policy decision. That is not a land use decision. And from a land use decision, this is an exceptional project. I have my concerns. I think we still need more right-of-way on Federal, especially thinking of the buses so they have a place to pull out so they're not blocking traffic lanes, improving the safety for the kids. Those are some design issues, and I'd love to speak with you further on those at some point. But I am, I came in here completely undecided and possibly even leaning the other way a little bit. And I am convinced that all my questions have been answered, and this will be an amazing project, an amazing addition to Westminster. And I just want to thank everybody for the years of time they've put into making this project a reality and coming this far. Thank you.
Any other comments? Commissioner Tomachek.
I'd like to state to the Save Westminster Farm folks, I live over off of 104th and Federal on the northeast corner. I moved there 93, early 94. Right about that time, Legacy Ridge was being developed. Got there just after the decisions were being made. But also at that point in time, the northwest corner had yet to be developed into the post office that's there now. The southwest corner hadn't yet been built. The southeast corner was a much smaller development than it is now. Going east on the southeast corner, which is in Federal Heights and in North Glen, that was largely undeveloped. And quite frankly, a lot of that stuff got developed and traded up in traffic, much like you're discussing. Safety issues were created and eventually fixed by the city and also the other two cities as time went on. But what a lot of the residents of that area have come to appreciate is that we do have shopping. We do have restaurants where we didn't have them before. We've actually got parks that we didn't have before. A lot of the other things that are mentioned in the public comments that you would like to have are effectively guaranteed by this development and are not guaranteed by the cities or Adams County, quite frankly, because the tax dollars just aren't there. And with Tabor and the anti-tax movement that's occurred over the last 15, 20 years, you're likely never to get those. So life being the compromise that it is, I believe you're actually going to improve conditions in your community, despite the fact that you're going to get more traffic out. So in that regard, I can't help but vote in favor of the development.
Any other comments? Seeing none, I will call the question. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Boschert.
In favor.
Chairperson Boschert is in favor. Vice Chair McConnell.
Yes.
Vice Chair McConnell is in favor. Commissioner Carpenter.
Aye.
Commissioner Carpenter is in favor. Commissioner Dunn.
Yeah.
Commissioner Dunn is in favor. Commissioner Tomachek.
Yes.
Commissioner Tomachek is in favor. Commissioner Mayo.
Yes.
Commissioner Mayo is in favor. Commissioner Torres.
Yes.
Commissioner Torres is in favor. Complete.
Motion passes unanimously. Do we have a motion for? Commissioner Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to recommend to City Council that Parcel A MODP be approved, subject to the additional conditions as stated in the first motion.
Commissioner Tomacek.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. I would like to say one last thing. I would urge the applicant to maintain their commitment to the affordable, attainable housing. It's a laudable goal, and I would like to see it maintained over the entire span of this development. Oh, excuse me, Commissioner McConnell.
Thank you, Chair Boschert. I'm going to keep my comments brief. I want to thank the applicant, first of all, for answering the questions that I had, but those questions weren't actually mine. The question about CDOT, the comment about Mile High Flood District, the comment, many comments about public land dedication. Those came from the Save Westminster Farm folks, and that was the reason that I was asking those questions, is because they had asked them in public testimony. So I want to thank you for answering those questions and thank you for clearing up the concerns that I had.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Boschert.
In favor.
Chairperson Boschert is in favor. Vice Chair McConnell.
Yes.
Vice Chair McConnell is in favor. Commissioner Carpenter.
Aye.
Commissioner Carpenter is in favor. Commissioner Dunn.
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn is in favor. Commissioner Tomacek.
Yes.
Commissioner Tomacek is in favor. Commissioner Mayo.
Yes.
Commissioner Mayo is in favor. Commissioner Torres.
Yes.
Commissioner Torres is in favor. Complete.
The motion passes unanimously. I would like to thank staff Jennifer Bodden, Patrick Caldwell, Kristen Decker, and Rita McConnell for your good work, and all of the other staff did a magnanimous job on this. Thank you. Is there any old business that we need to address? Any miscellaneous business? This meeting is adjourned.